everybody, and welcome back to my channel. And today we're going to be talking about the Attitude Mag article called Autism and Anxiety in Adults, and the title is Understanding and Managing Autism and Anxiety in Adults. It says anxiety is not considered a core feature of autism spectrum disorder, which is what I live with and what I'm diagnosed with in adults, but generalized anxiety disorder is autism's most common comorbid condition. Accurately diagnosing and treating anxiety is crucial since it greatly impacts the core aspects of ASD, such as repetitive behaviour and social issues. I've been diagnosed with clinical anxiety, which is recognised as general anxiety, and anxiety does really impact the day-to-day behaviours and day-to-day structures of how I cope. So that part of the article is correct, and this article was written by Lily Constance, and it was uploaded at the end of August. And it says the autism-anxiety connection. Autism spectrum disorder is generally characterised by social and communication difficulties and repetitive behaviour. Severe forms of ASD are often diagnosed in the first 2 years of a child's life, but high-functioning individuals may not be diagnosed until much later on in their life. Adults with autism who are diagnosed with high functioning may only have mild challenges, which are sometimes mistaken for symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder or ADD. Others may have more severe symptoms like impaired spoken language. No two people with ASD will experience the same behaviours or in the same way, which is correct because I was diagnosed later on in my life. I was diagnosed at age 25 with high functioning autism, and I also have clinical anxiety disorder. So yeah, they greatly impact how I see the world and how my autism impacts me. Though anxiety is not considered a core feature of autism, it is the most common comorbid condition found in autism. A recent study found that anxiety disorders are diagnosed in more than 20% of adults with an autism spectrum disorder diagnosis, compared to just 8.7% of a neurotypical adult. Neurotypical means normal, non-disabled by definition. It's not something that I want to use to offend anybody, but that's what neurotypical means. Psychosocial symptoms of anxiety can include difficulty with sleeping, obsessive thinking, and difficulty with concentrating. Physical symptoms can range from an upset stomach to heart palpitations or severe dizziness. Recognising and treating anxiety in individuals with ASD is particularly important since it can greatly impact core aspects of autism, namely repetitive behaviours and social situation withdrawals. Anxiety complicates life for people on the spectrum, especially when navigating the social world. It can interfere with job placements or independent living. I can agree partly with this paragraph because I do have difficulties with sleeping and obsessive thoughts, and I often get upset stomach when I'm stressed out, or if I get really high periods of anxiety, my stomach will tend to hurt to the point where I need the toilet, or to the point where I just feel in pain and I'm unable to cope with what's in front of me. Also about social withdrawing, sometimes I social withdraw because I get socially overstimulated and I have too much sensory input coming into me, so therefore the best thing for me to do is to socially withdraw to gain up my energy again, to get myself back, to stop the risk of me feeling overstimulated or over anxious leading to panic attacks. So untreated comorbid anxiety has been linked to the development of depression, aggression and self-injury in individuals with ASD. Susan G. Gilroy, co-director of the Northeast Arc Autism Support Center in Massachusetts in the USA, says there are individuals with developmental disabilities with severe anxiety who lead very limited lives because they're not getting the help or treatment they need. I can agree with that. I can imagine that the developmental disabilities and the attempt of self-injury would get worse and worse depending on how the help wasn't offered or how the person wouldn't take the help that was offered to them. So I can imagine that increasing their behaviours. So it goes on to say, to strengthen avoidance behaviour, separation anxiety may then also arise, which the patient has to separate from their attachment. So how do we manage autism and anxiety? One step is medication. Since anxiety is a distinct disorder, it can be treated separately from other areas of ASD. Antidepressants, anti-anxiety medications, and beta blockers are used to treat anxiety within the general neurotypical population. Few studies have been done discerning whether these drugs are equally effective in adults with an ASD diagnosis. A small study from the Cochrane collaboration found that the drug Luvox may help treat obsessive-compulsive disorder in adults with autism, and fluoxetine Prozac may likewise help with the anxiety. The conclusion was that these drugs should be used on only a case-by-case individual basis to treat OCD and severe anxiety within adults with ASD. Other studies on fluoxetine in adults and children with ASD demonstrate improvement within the repetitive behaviours, but a controlled trial showed that citalopram that I used to be on, citalopram is a mood stabiliser antidepressant, and it says that citalopram has been shown to work no differently than a placebo in reducing repetitive behaviours and anxiety. Some patients have also had negative behavioural impacts, such as feeling hyperactivity, impulsivity, and severe insomnia. Medical professionals should keep in mind that patients with ASD may be sensitive to low doses of medications. These adults present significant variations in treatment responses and adverse reactions to medications. So I'm not promoting medication for autism, that's not what I'm saying. Each is to each individual basis, on each individual case, dependent on whether you can cope with medication or not. So I'm not saying pump people with autism with medication, because it just doesn't work. For me, it didn't work, and I've had to learn to self-cope by myself. So how do we manage autism and anxiety with therapy is another option you can do. When treating ASD in adults, medication alone is unlikely to mitigate the symptoms of concern. Other interventions are typically needed that may include skill training, environmental changes, behavioural techniques, and the use of sensory input. Cognitive behavioural therapy effectively treats anxiety disorders and OCD in youth with ASD, especially within the high-functioning individuals with adequate verbal skill. CBT focuses on changing how an individual interprets a situation with the intention of reducing negative feelings on healthy responses. CBT includes learning to differentiate between helpful and unhelpful anxiety, learning to identify anxious thoughts and improve executive function, progressive exposure to feared stimuli, interventions with parents, practicing reciprocity skills to improve engagement with others, visual prompts to help the patient cope with difficult situations. So I'm just going to go on to the next page. Better understanding of how to recognise and treat comorbid anxiety disorders has the potential to improve quality of life for adults. So how do we recognise anxiety disorders within autistic adults? Recognising the presence of anxiety in patients with ASD is challenging because of overlapping symptomatology and altered presentations of symptoms. For example, minimally verbal patients may not be able to express their internal state and instead demonstrate anxiety through disruptive behaviour. Other patients may be verbally fluent but struggle to understand and express their own emotion. For these reasons and others, the questionnaires typically used to diagnose anxiety may not work for individuals with ASD. Medical providers should also instead look for physical signs of anxiety such as tremors, restlessness, sweating, body aches, and sleep problems. Family members can also be asked questions to note if they see any difference of behaviour. For me, with anxiety, my body will often ache, especially in the shoulders, chest, and lower back areas, so that's where my anxiety tends to attack me. The Anxiety and Depression Association of America explains how anxiety disorders may present differently depending on the patient and demands from their environment. A specific phobia, namely an intense irrational fear of something that poses little or actual no danger, may arise early in the course of ASD because of over-responses to sensory stimulation such as a loud environment. Social anxiety may develop as a direct result of social communication impairment, especially if the patient is high-functioning and is aware of their social incompetence. Social anxiety, defined as intense anxiety or fear of being negatively evaluated in a social or performance situation, in turn leads to avoidance of social situations, therefore limiting the patient's opportunities to practice their social skills and may predispose the individual to negative reactions from peers and even bullying. I suffer with social anxiety to a little bit of amount because I've learned to adjust myself to social situations. I've learned to trust people and be around people. I think that's because of my parents and the fact that I've learned to be very social by putting myself in uncomfortable situations. So the last bit it says daily interventions are equally important for helping an adult with ASD manage and understand their anxiety. The National Autistic Society of the United Kingdom details strategies like keeping a diary, using apps, and creating a meltdown prevention plan. So I hope you've enjoyed this article. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back next time. Bye!